For decades, the US government has fought a war not on crime, not on violence, but on drugs. Billions spent, millions arrested, and yet, drugs are still here. In fact, they're more available, more potent, and more profitable than ever. This video explores how the war on drugs became one of the most expensive and devastating failures of modern policy, from its origin to its enforcement, from broken communities to bloated prisons. Let's ask, was this ever about drugs in the first place? Globally, drug policy is a patchwork. In Portugal, all drugs were criminalized in 2001. Possession now treated as a public health issue, not a criminal one. In Uruguay and Canada, cannabis is fully legal. Switzerland offers heroin-assisted treatment in clinics to those with addiction, reducing overdose, deaths, and crime. And yet, in most of the world, drugs like cannabis, cocaine, ecstasy, and heroin remain strictly illegal, despite overwhelming evidence that criminalization doesn't stop use. So why does the US, with all its data, still cling to a failed strategy? The modern war on drugs was officially declared by President Richard Nixon in 1971, calling drugs public enemy number one. But leaked memos and interviews now show that the goal was never about health. It was about targeting political enemies. Nixon's aide, John Ehrlichman, admitted it blatantly. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be black or against the war, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, we could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings. The war on drugs wasn't just a campaign, it was a weapon of control, government control, of activists, of black communities, of the poor. And once the war started, it never really stopped. Once the government has power, they don't like to give it up. How is the war on drugs enforced? Think: no-knock raids, militarized police units, SWAT teams breaking down doors for over a few grams, stop and frisk policies targeting young black men in New York. In the 1980s and 90s, under Reagan, Clinton, and Bush, drug policy exploded. Mandatory minimums for possession, three-strike laws, asset forfeiture, letting police seize property without a conviction. Who got locked up? Not major cartel leaders, not pharmaceutical CEOs, but users, addicts, street dealers. The racial disparity is also staggering. Black people use drugs at a similar rate as white people, but are arrested 3 to 5 times more. In many states, a non-violent drug conviction can mean years in prison, the loss of voting rights, and a lifetime of stigma. And all this for what? And think about it. The as long as it's not me mentality will slowly be consumed. For one thing we know about power is that it corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So one day, it may be you in the handcuffs, even if you're licking the boot that is smashing your teeth in. Since 1971, the US has spent over $1 trillion on the war on drugs. That's enough to fund universal health care for years. How about solving hunger at home? How about infrastructure development, programs for the most vulnerable? Instead, we've gotten overcrowded prisons, criminal records that ruin lives, families torn apart. Meanwhile, overdose deaths are higher than ever, especially due to fentanyl. Criminalization doesn't stop drug use, it makes it more dangerous. It's supply and demand. Users fear arrest, so they avoid hospitals. Street drugs are often laced and unpredictable, and rehabilitation is underfunded, while police budgets grow. Critics argue that what we're really doing isn't fighting addiction, it's punishing pain. And here's a contradiction. While millions were jailed for crack or heroin, pharmaceutical companies flooded America with legal opioids. Purdue Pharma, the makers of OxyContin, made billions while hiding how addictive their drug was. They paid fines, no one went to prison. Meanwhile, a teenager caught with heroin might get 10 years. It shows us something clear. Drug laws aren't about safety, They're about who controls the supply and who the system sees as a criminal. Today, there's a growing push to end the war on drugs. From activists to public health officials, the message is the same. We need harm reduction, not punishment. That means safe consumption sites, needle exchanges, decriminalization of small possession, accessible rehab. Portugal's example is often cited. Since decriminalization, addiction, HIV rates, and overdoses have dropped significantly. So why hasn't the US followed? The answer lies in politics, profit, and punishment. Entire industries from private prisons to law enforcement depend on the war on drugs. And then it means admitting that it was never about drugs in the first place. It was about control of race, class, and rebellion. Drugs didn't destroy cities. Poverty did. De-investment did. Criminalization did. The war on drugs was never a war for the people. It was a war on them. It was a war on the people. And it's time to stop fighting it. Thanks for watching. If you have been impacted by the drug war, or you believe there's a better way, drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's start a real conversation. Not just about drugs, but about dignity.